Yep.
Call to order this meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees for Tuesday, October 24th. If everybody will stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have that, before us we have our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads at this time? Okay, the agenda will stand as presented. Sheriff's report, we don't have anything, but is there anybody in the audience that has anything for the sheriff? Okay, that'll conclude that. Nothing under unfinished business. New business, number one, I will turn that over to our administrator, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. Before you have a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to continue services with Planet Technologies for a one-year agreement for our Office 365, and to authorize payment not to exceed $5,442.72 from the funds as split below.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, clarify, this was the software that we moved to, where, how, was it 2 years ago?
We've been using them for at least a year and a half now. Office 365, all of our email, everything's all.
Essentially, it's the most mobile platform.
Yeah.
And
Been a really good platform.
instead of buying traditional software.
And upgrading continuously.
Year out, is it upgrades? We've got the updates as part of all this, so,
And moved our Exchange server off-site.
for redundancy and safety.
All the emails.
That's the same thing Stark State uses.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Next year you'll see it as a beginning of the year resolution, because it does happen yearly, and we're trying to move all those things to the beginning to do it, so when the invoices come in, we're set and just a little more efficient.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that ends new business.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. That's going to take us to the fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for a resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in an amount of $171,673.48.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Joe, just a point of clarification, the Gillette bill, is that for outfitting primarily those two newer trucks? Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for a resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
I'll move on fiscal officer number 2.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for the month of September.
Anyone has any questions for Tom, feel free to see him afterwards.
And Fiscal Officer number 5 is the bank reconciliation for the month of September.
Questions? Okay.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for a resolution to authorize the following transfers.
I'll move on fiscal officer number
I'll
6.
second it.
Discussion. I got a hard copy here. It appears under admin. There's one more item here than there is on the PDF copy. We've got improvement of sites to salaries. Is this the hard copy, the progressive version? All right. So you got
That's it.
right there.
I will move them on fiscal officer number 6 based on the hard copy information.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7A is a request for resolution to authorize the benefits of longevity pay payable on November 10, 2017 to members of the Plain Township Firefighters Association who meet the requirements of the attached schedule.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
this is based on the collective bargaining agreement.
Correct. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7B is a request for resolution to authorize the benefits of longevity pay frozen at current years completed payable on November 10, 2017 to all non-bargaining unit employees who meet the requirements of the attached schedule.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for emergency medical services as requested by Ohio Billing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
That concludes the Fiscal Officer report.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. We're going to turn over to our administrator, Ms. Campbell, for the administrators.
Yes, before you tonight, I have a resolution to authorize the purchase and payment for 6 gravestone markers from Summit Memorial in the amount of $3,600 from Fund 01D09, the cemetery fund.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion, is this part of our remark, or properly marking of
It
the
is.
township cemetery?
As your cemetery sexton, by law, we're mandated to take care of the cemetery, and that's more than mowing and weeding, but also the grave markers. So I work to identify 6 gravestones of some of our founding families in Plain Township, and the oldest residents in our cemetery. All of these will be flat markers, since that's what we've moved to. They're older, elaborate ones, but they're crumbling and you can almost not read the names. It's the records that we went by and rubbings just to triple check. So I anticipate about 6 more this year, because we do have the cemetery fund set aside for it, and it is something by law we should do, and just to be good stewards of the cemetery.
We've actually done quite a bit of work over there from, what was it, the last year and a half, marking. And there's some, is it, once it's similar, but
No,
what
we've
was
done,
used to identify,
yeah, we did
proper
the
marking as
sonar,
well.
yeah.
okay,
And I just recertified our cemetery through the state of Ohio, because we are a certified cemetery. So we're all good on the books, but yeah, there's been a lot of positive changes over there.
and with respect to the expense itself, Mr. Noon has been beyond competitive price-wise.
Yeah.
Nobody's even coming.
And his passion is monuments and preservation of these types of issues, so he really gives us a good deal. That's his passion.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that's the end of the administrator report.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. It's going to take us to the fire department. Chief Schallenberg.
Thank you. Yeah, item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize purchase and payment of gasoline, oil, diesel, fuel, and miscellaneous from McIntosh Oil not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Item number 2 is a motion by Plain Township Board of Trustees to, the township has accumulated scrap metal which it no longer needs and has a salvage value of less than $2,500, can be sold for scrap.
I'll move on FT2.
I'll second it.
Discussion, just, I know we talked earlier, Chuck, this is primarily for the old tanker that we've repurposed.
Correct,
Covered a
yeah.
road for brine, but the old tank won't work. As Joe's clarified, just do the seal / leaking and so forth, so scrap value, I mean, that was purchased through fire, so those funds need to come back up into.
Got a paycheck somehow.
Is that?
Got a paycheck for the truck somehow.
And this is basically the same thing you do, right, Joe?
Yeah.
This is the same
Pretty same
process.
thing.
Yeah, it's just the way it needs to get paid.
Yeah.
So,
No further discussion, roll call?
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to agree to change order K-01, 2017-137-01 for Krill Fire training facilities to install an LPG fuel training system and a new training building for amount not to exceed $41,000 to be taken from 21A02C.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, I think for the sake of the expense amount, we just need to clarify. We originally appropriated $450,000 for the training building that came in at, what was it, $335. But as that facility would sit right now, you can only do what, class one?
Class A.
Class A. But this will this allow the class, is it B?
Actually, propane would be Class B.
Yep.
Okay. See, I learned something out there.
There you go.
So it gives us the opportunity to do Class B and A fuel sources, and since we did come under bid through the bidding process, we were able to have money, you know, we could reappropriate the building, make it a little better. We kind of went with the bare bones minimum initially, and then, you know, with the concrete costs, some other stuff come back a little bit cheaper than we thought. So I think it's a good investment for the future, because it's like basically we can have an instant fire, you know, where you don't have to have pallets, straw, and all the other equipment stored for those days when we have training, and a little easier to, you know, make the thing happen, I guess you'd say, when you're doing training, so.
So essentially, by the time it nets out, we're still about $75,000 to
Still under.
$80,000 under what was budgeted, under the capital line item. If you're 450, you were at 330,
Yeah.
35, 41, that's 375 approximately.
Yes.
Okay.
It just gives another dimension to the instructors too, because when you take into account the instructors inside the building on every burn, but in this particular case, they have to reset the burn, they have to do all of that, where when you're using propane, there is no resetting. So, you know, when the next crew's ready to go, you're ready to go. So you're not so tired at the end of the training session.
Again, I think it's important to point out too, when you amortize this over a life of at least 20 years, you're looking at about 18 grand a year, $1,500 a month, whereas I mean, John, you teach up at Star State, and Chuck, you look, if we had to take folks off-site, reduce responsibility, reduce response time, you know, our overtime costs for pulling people out, it very easily saves us.
Yeah, that just wouldn't work. It would be impossible to keep the numbers back. You know, plus this way you rotate people in and out, so you actually get to work with the crews that are going to be the size of when that actual call comes in. So now you're working with those resources in numbers. If you would go off-site, you're going to send a smaller group of people there to do it. So there's just so many pluses. Jackson has the luxury, obviously, of utilizing the college because they're right there. But, you know, I don't know of anybody that goes off-site to the college with the resources that you would have from on-duty personnel to train at those facilities. So we're extremely fortunate that we have the ability to be able to do this.
Chief, you'll still use pallets, but this, our conversation today upstairs will be a little bit easier. The flame will come out, like you said, it will still demonstrate coming under a bed. And you said it will get 800 degrees up there, and you'll still be able to smoke the building. So all the same similarities of that pallet, except we're able to turn it off and on.
Right, with that room, we're gonna do like a bed prop, so basically it'll look like a mattress fire that kind of rolls up to the ceiling. So we'll be able to, you know, a little more situational, I guess, that's why I put on the second floor versus the first floor. You know, it's a little safer for the instructors too, you know, because now you don't actually have to have as much material there to lay and to store, because we'd have to store in pallets and straw and,
These pallets
everything.
are actually all the more difficult to get your hands on.
Yeah.
At a reasonable price, so.
And we don't know what's gonna happen with the NFPA standards down the road, with all the carcinogen rules and everything else, that we may be forced to only be able to burn plastic materials. So,
Just
And
that,
that,
oh,
that still doesn't take out the basement fire concept.
No, no,
Because it's still at the same location.
Yeah, didn't move it or anything, just same spot.
so the board's aware, although there's a savings of money, it is in a capital account, so that money just doesn't automatically go back to the general, I'm sorry, it should go in the general fund, but back into the fire fund. So I know you know there's a process to close that account legally and according to the Budget Commission rules also, before it would go back to the fund it came from or be reappropriated for another capital item.
Which at that point, if it is scrutinized, is gonna demonstrate that, based on all of that, how that came in and what we purchased with that is
Correct.
suffice for the legalities of it. I will be.
No further discussion, roll call please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Next item is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment for installation of flooring and code-based materials at Station 3 located at 2625 25th Street. Not to exceed $3,500 to be taken from 10A, 10A.
I was so moved.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 5 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the hiring of Pastor Kevin Thomas for the position of Plain Township Fire Chaplain, whose duties are defined in the attached job description below.
I'll move on. FD5.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Concludes fire.
Thank you.
Takes to road, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is a speed zone study that I did in the subdivision, on a subdivision road in the Foxmore Estates allotment. It was discovered that we did not have that posted. By statute, I am allowed to do that, and there's a resolution that the board that the statutory vehicular speed limit established by section 4511.21 revised code of Ohio is greater than the considered reasonable and safe on Doncaster Street between State Route 43 and Ashburton Circle. Whereas it is the belief of this board that such investigation confirms that the delegation that the statutory speed limit of 55 miles per hour is unrealistic. By virtue of this provision, section 4511.21 revised code of Ohio, the township trustees have determined that the road superintendent has declared a reasonable and safe speed limit of 25 miles per hour in this section of the roadway.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 2 is Ashburton Circle, which runs between Doncaster and Doncaster in the Foxmore Estates allotment. The speed zone study was done there, and it was unrealistic that the statutory speed limit of 55 miles per hour is unrealistic. By virtue of this provision, the township trustees have determined that the road superintendent has declared a reasonable and safe speed limit of 25 miles per hour in this section of the roadway.
I'll move on. Road 2.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, out to authorize the posting of all streets and allotment signs at the entrance of the Foxmore Estates allotment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Joe, just to clarify for record's sake, if anybody's watching this, essentially this is to mean that the 25 mile per hour speed applies to all
A
streets.
series of signs,
Within.
25, all allotment
That way,
streets.
it's not 25 mile per hour on every,
We don't have to go post speed limit signs all throughout the.
yeah. No further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the posting of temporary no parking signs for the McKinley-Maston football game to be posted on both sides of the Plain Township streets on the following streets. The signs, no parking signs will be posted on October 27th and removed on October 30th.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Discussion, I mean, this is just a normal thing we've done.
Yes, we showed you the list for our streets. We received a call from the sheriff's office asking us.
Is there a reason why you put McKinley first and Maston second then?
Yeah, it sure wasn't alphabetical, was it?
Just so you could catch that.
I'm gonna make an
It's
emergency
the
motion
opposite.
to adjourn.
It's the opposite on the agenda.
Linda did that.
Yeah.
She's looking out for
All right. No further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 5 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the posting of temporary no parking signs for the Stark County Ohio High School Championship games to be posted on both sides of Plain Township streets. This was requested by the visitors.
I'll move on, road 5.
Second discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's gonna take us to the zoning department, Mr. Farrar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 1 is a resolution to declare items A and B as nuisance abatements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, I just want to make a point on 1B, because I know certain folks in the public seem to want to bring light to the Star Fire on North Market. Actually, the township in Brownfield debated that, working with a realtor to actually get that in the hands of some possibly interested parties. You know, right now, as I was up there, there were 2 windows, one on the front, top corner, and then over on the side, so that's the reason for that. But there is an active process here that was that the $30,000 or $35,000 grant that we got, Lisa, to get that abated
Well,
out
it was
there?
more than that.
Yeah, it was,
Well, that's, the grants that we got, one was for 30, one was for 35.
Oh, yeah, so total, yes, to remove the gas tanks there.
Yeah.
And we actually have businesses looking at that property as we speak.
Okay, no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to declare item A as a nuisance abatement payment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3, the Plain Township Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on zoning amendment 571-17 on October 11, 2017. At that hearing, the commission recommended denial of the proposed amendment. That was a text change that was going to add definitions, 4 additional definitions to the resolution. This resolution is for the Plain Township Board of Trustees to set a public hearing for zoning amendment 571-17 for Tuesday, November 14th at 6:15 p.m.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's all for zones.
Thank you, Mr. Cron. Nothing in our parks, nothing under the law, nothing in our communications. Public speaks. Anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board with any issues? Cameraman, potential?
He's just snapped his photos.
That'll close public speaks. Concerns of trustees, whether my fellow trustees have anything to note?
I just have one, I forgot to tell our fire chief, and I did text him after the fire memorial, that the township hosted that, and I just publicly want to say how professional that was, and very moving, well put together, Eric. I know you had part, you were doing you guys were very professional, you all did a very good job, it was very well done.
Thank you.
So I was going to say, I was at the station, I didn't get over to the memorial, it was another conflict, but even seeing it proceeding along, it really was. You guys indicated it was smaller from the number of units, but the actual event over at the parish was, it was pretty
Yeah, it
full
was
house.
very well attended this year as far as, you know, the people coming to the church service. We were able to, you know, the little flower church was, you know, helped us out a lot with the facilities, you know, and everything else, so everything went real good. And obviously the Stark County Firefighters Association, you know, doing the bulk of the, you know, the work on the inside of it, so. But thank you, yeah.
No, thank you.
I've got just a couple things. I think the first one I want to make here is based upon the parking lot party that was back here, the plaza being revitalized. I was able to get another $500 out towards Veterans Hillside from our friends at Toddy B's. So, Tom, I'll get that to you. Get that to you.
Yeah, that's great.
Just as a heads up, next County Township Association meeting in November 16th is being sponsored by Regional Planning, so we should have an agenda coming out. December's going to be the holiday party, so if either of you have any desires to run as an officer in that group, we're going to be two people down due to folks not seeking re-election in office, so. Outside that, just literally a couple important events that I wanted to remind, you know, November 2nd, actually one of the folks in the crowd here, Brooke, part of the steering committee, and she's sitting on she's one of the co-chairs, I'm on the steering committee with her. We have the Stark County Veterans Stand Down at the Camp Memorial Civic Center. We can't stress it enough, just because the efforts of signs, postcards, social media, some radio efforts. It's important that any vets that are out there, this is a good chance to have a single consolidated location to get connected with all the different service providers. And essentially it's a Veterans Assistance and Resource Fair designed, like I said, to bring all facets of veterans programs to one location. This is the first time in Stark County. It's the largest veterans event in Stark County. What, between 80 and 90 tables?
We have 87 right now. We just did a walkthrough today at the Civic Center, and every corner of the Civic Center that we booked is going to be filled up, and we're using the McKinley Room for the pinning ceremony. 6,500 flyers or mailers will be going out tomorrow morning to all 6,500 veterans that we have in Stark County.
Have been identified within the county. So let's make sure, in front of the media, will help push that still. We've got a veterans push of events here in November. That's the second. November 4th, our partnership with the Moochie team, we've got the Heroes on the Move 5K. I just bring this one up because the proceeds are going to our veterans park. It's a pretty cheap event. They're going to have some hero themes. It's really going to be family oriented, and the best part is it benefits our veterans park. And because I don't think our next meeting is going to be before salute to veterans, we need to remember that Saturday, November 11th at Central Fire Station in Veterans Park, we will have our third annual Salute to Veterans event, where we will have free breakfast courtesy of Samantha's. Again, we'll have a number of service providers, not near the scale of the stand down, but our keynote speaker is going to be Deanne Covey, with the Stark County Veterans Service Commission, and we're going to have a meal, actually a luncheon. We'll call it a brunch/lunch, depending upon the timing, courtesy of Mission Barbecue. And this is all possible due to the number of sponsors. So save the date for November 11th.
And our newsletter just went out, and prior to that, I was getting phone calls daily from veterans to see if we were having the event this year, so.
This sponsor too.
Yeah, breakfast, yeah. So I think, you know, the veterans are starting to look forward to this yearly event.
Let's see here. Those were the main things I had. Did you have anything, John? Includes concerns of trustees, concerns of the fiscal officer.
No concerns.
And it will take us to the approval of the minutes for October 10th, 2017, and I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 6:31 PM.
Second?
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.